During a trip with his chauffeur, the millionaire Samuel Hunter was struck motionless upon seeing a watch he immediately recognized. It was identical to the one his son Felix had been wearing when he disappeared many years ago. Samuel, a renowned millionaire businessman, was preparing for another business trip on a rainy afternoon, under a gray sky that reflected his melancholic mood, which had persisted since Felix's disappearance 20 years earlier. The chauffeur, a young man named Jake, waited patiently beside the luxurious car, ready to depart. "Mr. Hunter," Jake asked as he opened the car door. "Yes, let's go," Samuel replied, entering the vehicle. As the car glided through the wet streets, Samuel almost reflexively noticed Jake's wrist and saw a familiar watch. It was identical to the one Felix had worn on the day he disappeared. Samuel's heart pounded, and he leaned forward, eyes fixed on the watch. "Jake, where did you get that watch?" Samuel asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Taken aback by the question, Jake quickly glanced at the watch. "Oh, this watch? I bought it at a pawn shop in a small town where I lived for a while." "Why?" Samuel felt a surge of emotion and hope. "Can you take me to that town?" "It's important," Samuel requested. Jake hesitated for a moment, but the seriousness in Samuel's gaze convinced him. "Of course, Mr. Hunter. Let's head there right away." The journey took an unexpected turn, and Samuel couldn't stop thinking about the watch. Every mile traveled heightened his anxiety and hope. He knew it was a lead he couldn't ignore. Samuel and Jake arrived at the small town under a cloudy sky and a light drizzle that lent a melancholic air to the surroundings. The narrow streets and old buildings exuded nostalgic charm, but Samuel was focused on a single mission: finding the pawn shop mentioned by Jake. "It's just there, Mr. Hunter," Jake said, pointing to a small store with a weathered sign. Samuel nodded and stepped out of the car, feeling a mix of anxiety and hope. Upon entering, they were greeted by a kindly old man who rose from behind a counter cluttered with antique items. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. How can I help you?" Mr. Alfred, the store owner, asked. Samuel approached the counter and took the watch out of his pocket. "Do you remember who brought this watch here?" Mr. Alfred adjusted his glasses and examined the watch closely. His eyes widened in recognition. "Yes, I remember it well. It was sold by a man named Paul, who said he found it in an abandoned house on the outskirts of town." Samuel's heart raced faster. He was closer than ever to uncovering the truth about Felix's disappearance. "Can you give us more information about this Paul? Where can we find him?" Mr. Alfred nodded, retrieving an old notebook from under the counter. "Paul lives in a modest house on the outskirts of town. He's a reserved man, but I don't think he'll have any problem talking to you about the watch." As Mr. Alfred noted down the address, Samuel felt adrenaline coursing through his veins. The answers he sought were closer than ever. Jake, standing beside him, observed everything attentively, sensing the urgency in Samuel's expression. "Thank you, Mr. Alfred," Samuel said, taking the slip of paper with the address. "You have no idea how much this means to me." "I hope you find what you're looking for," Mr. Alfred replied with a compassionate smile. Samuel and Jake left the store and returned to the car. The anxiety was palpable, but there was also a thread of renewed hope. Jake drove through the narrow streets, following the directions they had been given. Finally, they arrived at a simple house surrounded by an unkempt garden. "Here it is," Jake said, turning off the engine. Samuel took a deep breath before getting out of the car. Each step toward Paul's house was a step into the unknown, but he was determined to press forward. Jake knocked on the door, which was answered by a middle-aged man with a weary appearance. "Are you Paul?" Samuel asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Yes, that's me." "Who are you?" Paul replied, looking from Samuel to Jake with curiosity. "My name is Samuel Herrera. We need to talk about a watch you found in an abandoned house," Samuel said, holding up the watch. Paul frowned as he recognized the watch Samuel was holding. "Ah, yes, I remember. Please, come in." Samuel and Jake followed Paul into the modest house. The atmosphere was simple but cozy. Paul led them into the living room and offered them seats. Samuel, eager for answers, decided to start the conversation. "Paul, we need to know everything you can tell us about the house where you found this watch," Samuel said, looking directly at him. Paul sighed and nodded, as if preparing to relive old memories. "The house is on the outskirts of town, in an area that was abandoned long ago. Back in the 90s, that place was known for illicit activities, drug trafficking, smuggling, and there were rumors of a child trafficking ring operating there." Samuel felt a chill run down his spine at this revelation. "Can you take us there?" Samuel asked, resolute. Paul hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed. "Yes, I can take you, but I must warn you, it's a dangerous place. Many avoid going there because of its dark history." "We're willing to take the risk," Jake replied firmly. Paul got up and grabbed a coat. "Very well, follow me." The trio left Paul's house and got into Samuel's car. As Paul gave directions, the atmosphere inside the car was tense. Samuel couldn't stop thinking about all the possibilities and how that house might finally give him the answers about Felix's whereabouts. After a few minutes of driving, they arrived at a dirt road leading to a cluster of abandoned houses. Overgrown vegetation and crumbling structures gave the place a gloomy and desolate atmosphere. The deteriorated facades gave the place a ghostly appearance. "It's here," said Paul, pointing at a house. "This is where I found the watch." Samuel and Jake got out of the car and followed Paul to the entrance. The door, slightly ajar, squeaked in the wind. The interior, dark and smelling of mold and decay, was illuminated by Paul's flashlight. "I remember finding the watch in an upstairs room," explained Paul as they climbed the creaky stairs. They reached a makeshift office with broken furniture and scattered papers. Paul pointed to an open drawer on an old desk. "That's where the watch was." Paul's flashlight revealed documents and photographs scattered on the floor, unveiling a sinister story. Samuel felt a chill. "Let's keep searching," he said, trying to remain calm. Any clue could be crucial in finding Richard. Jake found a dusty folder with records of illegal activities, including child trafficking. Samuel read it carefully and found Richard's name. "Richard was one of the victims," he said with a trembling voice. "He was sold like merchandise." Paul, silently observing, suggested, "Maybe Sabella was trying to protect the children." Samuel nodded. "We need more information about Sabella." In a drawer, they found Sabella's diary detailing her attempts to protect the children and mentioning an orphanage in the neighboring town. "This could be the key," said Samuel. "We need to go to that orphanage." They followed the clues to an old orphanage, where a nun welcomed them and searched through the archives. Richard arrived in 1995 and was adopted by a wealthy family who took him to Spain, she said. Samuel felt relief and sadness. Back home, Samuel decided to hire private investigators. Charles and Anna, from a reputable agency, met with him. "We need to act fast," said Samuel. Hunter nodded. "We'll start right away." After a week of intense investigation, Charles and Anna returned with news. "We located Richard, or rather, Richard is living with a loving family in Spain," Charles reported. "He's doing well and attending university," Anna added. Samuel felt immense relief. "Thank God. How can we contact him?" Charles suggested a discreet meeting. Samuel, heart racing, prepared for the journey. The hope of reuniting with Richard filled him with energy and determination. The watch was the starting point of this entire journey. Jake, by his side, offered words of encouragement. "We're almost there, Mr. Herrera. We'll find Richard and bring him home." The next day, they set off for Spain. Samuel could barely sleep during the long journey, his mind focused on the imminent reunion. Jake's calm demeanor helped him stay focused. Upon landing, Charles and Anna accompanied them to a cozy house on the outskirts of a quiet town where Richard lived. Samuel took a deep breath before walking to the door. Charles and Anna stayed in the background as Samuel knocked. A middle-aged woman opened with a warm smile. "Good afternoon," said Samuel. "My name is Samuel. I'm here to speak with Richard." The woman looked at him with curiosity and concern. "Of course, he's in the garden. I'll call him." Moments later, a young man with a familiar appearance appeared at the door. "Richard," said Samuel, feeling a lump in his throat. "Yes, that's me," the young man replied. "Who are you?" Samuel took a watch out of his pocket. "This watch belonged to my son Felix. He disappeared 20 years ago. I believe you are my son." Richard looked at the watch and then at Samuel, confused. "That's impossible. I was adopted when I was very young." Richard took some photos out of his pocket and handed them over. "These are photos of Felix. Look, this one was taken shortly before he disappeared." Richard examined the photos, recognizing the resemblance. "I don't know what to say," he said, overwhelmed. "This is a lot to take in." "I understand," said Samuel. "I spent all these years searching for you." With tears in his eyes, Richard replied, "If this is true, then my whole life has been a lie." "No," said Samuel softly. "You had a good life with a loving family. But you have the right to know where you come from." Richard looked at the photos again. "I want to know more. I want to understand what happened." "I promise to tell you everything," said Samuel. "Let's build this relationship step by step." Richard's adoptive mother approached and said, "Richard, I think you should hear what he has to say." Richard nodded. "I want to know my past." Samuel began to tell his story, from Felix's disappearance to the journey that brought him there. During the following days, Samuel and Richard spent a lot of time together, sharing memories and photos. The relationship was fragile, but both were determined to make it work. In the garden of the house, they sat under a large tree with a photo album. "Look at this one," said Samuel, pointing to a photo of a boy with a dog. "That's you with our dog Max." Richard smiled. "I've always liked dogs. I never knew why. Now it makes sense." Samuel laughed. "Max was your faithful companion." Richard fell silent, absorbing the information. "It's strange to think I have all these connections and memories I didn't know about." "What matters is that we're together now," said Samuel. "We can create new memories." They visited a nearby park, watching families. "You loved swinging," said Samuel. "We spent hours here." "I'd like to remember that," said Richard. "Let's create new memories," said Samuel, gently pushing the swing. Richard smiled, allowing himself to feel like a child again. At home, Samuel showed cherished toys and drawings. Richard, excited, watched a home video of a birthday. "This is incredible," he said, tears in his eyes. "It's like I'm getting to know a part of me that was always missing." "And that part was always important to me," said Samuel. "Now we can fill that void together." The bond between Samuel and Richard strengthened every day. One night, as they watched an album of old videos, Richard said, "Thank you for never giving up on finding me. You were always a part of me, Felix." "Giving up was never an option," Samuel replied. "Now we have a second chance. Let's make the most of it." "Yes, we will, together." As they strengthened their bonds, Samuel couldn't help but think there were more secrets to uncover about Felix's past. Determined to unravel the truth, Samuel began investigating with Jake's help. One morning, they met at a cafe. "Jake, we need to find out everything about Sabella, Richard's stepmother. I have a feeling she's somehow involved." "I agree, Mr. Hunter. I've already started some preliminary investigations. Sabella always seemed suspicious to me, but we need concrete evidence." The two men began to analyze records and documents. They uncovered dark connections and suspicious relationships. One night, while Samuel was reviewing old documents, he found a hidden letter mentioning suspicious financial transactions during the period when Richard disappeared. "Felix, look at this," said Samuel, calling his friend. "I found an important clue." The letter that could unmask Isabella mentioned financial transactions during Richard's disappearance. Felix quickly arrived at Samuel's house and together they analyzed the letter, discovering that Isabella had received large sums of money from unknown sources. "This is very suspicious," said Felix. They decided to investigate Isabella's financial actions, tracing accounts linked to a child trafficking network from the 90s. Suspicions grew, but they still lacked definitive evidence to confront her. One morning, at a discreet cafe, Samuel and Felix discussed the connection between Isabella and the network. The final lead came from an old accomplice of Isabella's, who confessed in exchange for protection. Isabella had orchestrated Richard's kidnapping to control the family fortune. With this confession, Samuel and Felix confronted Isabella at her home, revealing the evidence. Isabella tried to justify herself, but Richard, devastated, rejected her. The police arrived and arrested Isabella for the kidnapping and her involvement in the child trafficking network. With Isabella detained, Samuel and Richard felt relief and began to plan their future. They decided to use their resources to combat child trafficking and help affected families, founding an organization dedicated to this cause. Their work attracted attention and support, and at a launch event, they shared their mission with the public. 1 year later, the foundation had brought together many families and rescued numerous children, celebrating their achievements and renewing their commitment in an emotional ceremony. Samuel and Richard, proud, saw their work as a way to bring hope and justice to others. "You have brought our son back to us and returned our lives," said the woman emotionally. Moved, Samuel replied, "That's what motivates us every day. Seeing families reunited and children safe is our greatest reward." That night, back at the foundation headquarters, Samuel and Richard reflected on everything they had accomplished. The office was filled with thank you letters, photos of rescued children, and memories of their journey. "It's been an incredible journey," said Richard, looking at the photos on the wall. "But I feel there's still much to do." Samuel nodded. "There will always be more to do, but every step we take and every life we touch makes a difference. And we're doing it together." Richard smiled and added, "Yes, together, and we will keep going no matter how difficult it gets." The next day, Samuel and Richard traveled to a new city where they were helping to dismantle a child trafficking network. They collaborated with local authorities, coordinating efforts and providing support to victims. During the operation, they found a scared and lonely 10-year-old girl. Richard approached her gently and said, "Hello, my name is Richard. You're safe now." The girl, with fearful eyes, looked at Richard. He hugged her softly and assured her, "You don't have to be afraid anymore. We will take care of you." The girl nestled into his arms, feeling the comfort and security Richard conveyed. Samuel watched the scene with profound gratitude for having Richard by his side. Every rescue and every life saved strengthened their commitment to the cause. As Samuel watched Richard comfort the girl, he reflected on how much his son had grown and how compassionate and brave he had become, filling him with pride and hope. At the end of the day, with the sun setting on the horizon, Samuel and Richard sat on a hillside watching the landscape. The sky, painted in orange and purple hues, seemed a symbol of renewal and new beginnings. "We did a lot today," said Samuel, his heart full of pride and emotion. "But there's still much to do," Richard replied determinedly. "The world needs more people willing to fight for justice and hope." Samuel put a hand on his son's shoulder and said, "Together, we will continue to fight for justice and hope. Our work is just beginning, and we have the strength to make a difference." At that moment, Richard realized that although they had achieved so much, the essence of their mission had never changed. The clock, a symbol of redemption and strength, continued to accompany Samuel and Richard on every step of their journey. Each tick-tock reminded them of lost time but also of the future they could build together. As time passed, Samuel and Richard fulfilled the promise made under the starry sky, expanding the foundation to new places and touching lives in different countries and cultures. With every child rescued and every family reunited, their mission grew stronger. Their commitment to justice and hope became a beacon for many, inspiring others to join the cause. Over the years, Samuel and Richard's foundation transformed into a global movement, attracting thousands of volunteers and followers. The hard work and dedication of father and son created a network of solidarity that reached the remotest corners of the world. Wherever they went, the clock continued to mark time, not as a symbol of loss but as a testament to redemption and the transformative power of love. Decades after their journey began, in a special ceremony, Samuel and Richard were honored by world leaders for their tireless humanitarian work. Richard, now a mature and respected man, looked at his father with gratitude. "Everything we achieved, we did together, and it all started with the quest for justice and hope for a reunion." Samuel, visibly moved, smiled and said, "The world needs more stories of love and redemption, and we did our part to write some of those stories." Returning to the foundation headquarters, Samuel and Richard looked at the walls adorned with photos of rescued children and reunited families, a constant reminder of the impact of their work and the importance of never giving up. "We did a lot today," Samuel repeated, his heart still full of pride. "But there's still much to do," replied Richard, as always, determined. "And we will," Samuel affirmed, repeating the familiar gesture of placing his hand on his son's shoulder. "Together, we will continue to fight for justice and hope. Our work is just beginning, and we have the strength to make a difference." At that moment, Richard realized that, although they had achieved so much, the essence of their mission had never changed. The clock, a symbol of their journey, continued to mark time, reminding them of the commitment they made years ago. With one last look at the stars shining in the sky, Samuel and Richard knew that their legacy of love, justice, and hope would continue to inspire future generations. With renewed determination and hearts filled with purpose, father and son continued to transform the world, one life at a time, confident that together they could face any challenge the future held. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss more inspiring and touching content. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you for being here.